The Israel-Arab conflict is a very complex, ongoing affair, and few people really know the background or understand the present situation. So in a short video talk like this, the most we can do is mention some of the main aspects and try to get a fair idea of the big overall picture, which is that Palestine is a land where Arabs and Jews have lived for many generations. In 634 AD, the Arabians brought Islam to the region, and for most of the time since then, Palestine was ruled by various Muslim dynasties and countries until 1917, when Britain defeated Turkey during the First World War. Jews have expressed a strong religious and cultural attachment to this land going back thousands of years, when Jews had ruled and been the majority, and when it had been known as the land of Israel or Judea. Now, skipping an enormous amount of history, we'll focus briefly on a population census conducted by the British in 1922, which showed that at that time the Arabs outnumbered the Jews in Palestine by over 9-1. However, the Jewish population was increasing rapidly because for the first time in centuries, due to changing circumstances, Jews were able to fulfill their age-old prayer and return to the land of Israel in larger numbers than had been possible beforehand. What many, if not most, people don't realize is that Palestine was a much larger country in those days. It was about 5 times as large as present-day Israel. Also in 1922, the League of Nations confirmed the establishment of a national homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. Obviously, this was seen as very unfair and highly unacceptable to most Arabs. The following year, however, 77% of Palestine was cut off to create a purely Arab country, which was later to become the Kingdom of Jordan. But still, the Arabs were not happy about large-scale Jewish immigration or the prospect of an independent Jewish state in their midst, and there was repeated widespread marauding and rioting. And then there was the rise of Nazism, which threatened to kill all Jews everywhere, and utterly desperate, more and more Jews tried to come to Palestine. This the Arabs opposed vigorously. In November 1947, the United Nations voted to partition what was left of Palestine after its drastic reduction in size in 1923. The United Nations resolution called for 2 states, one for the Jews and yet another state for the Arabs. The Arabs rejected this resolution and declared war against the Jews of Israel. Taking into consideration the impossible odds that the Jews faced at that time, there seemed to be no way that the Arabs could lose this war, but lose they did, and many Arabs fled their homes, and thus was created the Arab refugee problem, forcibly perpetuated to this day by the Arab countries. At the same time, a larger number of Jews in Arab countries were forced to flee their homes because of Arab wrath. Most of them made new lives for themselves in Israel. Since then, there have been another 6 or more full-scale wars, and probably more to come, and thousands of terrorist attacks against Jews, and retaliating aerial bombings and military incursions by Israel. So much destruction, killing, misery, and increasingly implacable hatred. Could all this turmoil and torment have been avoided? Probably not, because the very idea of an independent non-Muslim state in the middle of the Arab world, a reviled Jewish state at that, is a very difficult proposition for many Arabs everywhere. This is not a conflict like between countries in the non-Muslim world. Despite the terrible wars among all the countries of Europe over the centuries, for instance, they are now able to accept each other and live in harmony and work for regional prosperity. Not so the conflict between Israel and the Arab-Muslim world. Islam cannot accept losing territory that was once ruled by Muslims. And the repeated defeats on the battlefield at the hands of the Jews of all people is untenable. Meanwhile, since that first Israel-Arab war in 1948, Israel has repeatedly relinquished territory it conquered in its wars of defense and national survival in order to try and reach some form of peace with the neighboring peoples. But in spite of all this, peace is more elusive than ever. In our next video, we will show the bearing that truthfulness can have on the resolution of this conflict, as well as on the other serious existential challenges that humanity faces. A doomsday situation beckons if we fail to learn the meaning of truthfulness and practice it. These video talks are based on the book How to Avoid Armageddon, which is available through Amazon or from the publisher Old Line Publishing, or you can ask at bookstores. Thank you.